Fighting games are only reaching a fraction of their potential audience, and this is a huge problem. It's no secret that any fighting game that isn't called Street Fighter 6 is struggling right now. So why is it that fighting games in 2026 struggle to find an audience? Well, a new article by the author Seathor was posted yesterday, and it's been making waves in the fighting game community because it tries to answer this exact question. Now, the author argues that fighting games struggle to find a wider audience because as a whole package, as a video game, they are, well, essentially terrible. So I'm going to summarize the author's thoughts, tell you what I agree with, and try to answer the question, why don't fighting games reach a larger audience? And before I get into the video, I want to hear what you think in the comments, so write down your thoughts below as to why you think fighting games aren't more popular than they possibly could be. So this is the article right here, and the author comes out with 3 bold statements right at the beginning. Number 1, fighting games are only reaching 1/10 of their potential audience. 2, changing the core game mechanics will have almost no effect on the genre reaching this potential. And if you guys have noticed, modern fighting games, they're really trying to dumb it down, for lack of a better word, make it easier for players to play, adding modern controls Street Fighter, removing motion controls altogether in games like 2XKO. And last, number 3, there are multiple other dimensions the genre can and must evolve along in order to reach this audience. The author goes on to talk a little bit about fighting game sales and history, but I think the most interesting part is this first part we see here, where he says many in the FGC are cynical about the gamer broadening market or just people in general. And he has a bunch of bullet points here. So there's no team, no excuses, so people don't want to lose. That's why they don't like playing single fighting player games online. No RNG, so it's too brutal to your ego. You need something kind of random to give you a chance to win, which fighting games don't really have. Fighting games are a doomed genre like RTS and arena shooters. Those aren't really doing too well if they even exist at all anymore, really. People are brain rotted and need instant gratification, so hard games can't be popular anymore. The only hard games with any audience now are those with established legacies like Counter-Strike, and it's impossible to compete with established players. You can't convince anyone to play anything not called Street Fighter, and people won't play fighting games that aren't using an existing IP. And then the author goes on to say that this isn't true when we actually look at trends in the gaming industry right now. Now, this isn't really a video game, but it is a game. Chess is a game, and he says chess is a 1v1 game with no RNG, and it's only gotten more accessible and more popular over time, in part due to things like chess.com and other kind of online systems. Also, Counter-Strike, the player numbers have been going up for 12 years straight, and if we click on this link, we can see that yes, he's not just making these numbers up, the player counts have been going up. And then a game like Deadlock, which is incredibly difficult, is also incredibly popular. And then he goes on later in the article to say that even single player games, something like Elden Ring or the Soul series, are kind of famous for being incredibly hard, but they're still very popular with a wide variety of gamers, and they often top the sales charts whenever a new game in that series comes out. So it's not really fair to say that just because fighting games are hard, people don't play. So let's talk about the perceived difficulty of fighting games and what modern games have done to kind of get rid of that. So he goes on here to say that every single fighting game in the modern market has made systematic changes to its core mechanics. Guilty Gear with Strive removes many legacy kind of features. Street Fighter 6, footsies, we got neutral drive rush cancel, throw loops, all those kind of things. Even Tekken 8, it just stands into 50-50 mix-up. Not really 50, but generally speaking, 50-50 mix-up, all that kind of stuff. It's all stuff that's been made to make decision-making easier and simpler so that anybody feels like they have an ability to beat somebody better than them. And this is where I want to go on and ask you, when you've tried to introduce a new person to a fighting game, like someone who doesn't normally play fighting games, maybe a friend or someone else, try to get them to play, they'll usually stick around for the first hour or 2 hours, but once things start to get a little bit difficult, and what I mean by difficult is they actually have to practice and put effort into learning things, they usually check out really quick. At least from my experience, that's how it's been. So I think what's really important for a fighting game, and the author says this too, it's not just to make the game easy so they can pick it up and keep on going. It's to give them something to do once they kind of hit that wall and once they discover that it actually takes practice to get good at fighting games. And that's where I think something like story or other modes is so important, because you can try to make the game as easy baby mode as you want, but even if it's super simple, only 2 things are generally going to happen in a fighting game. Number 1, people get bored and tired of it because it's not actually interesting. So not only the beginner players quit, but the advanced, more core audience, they'll quit too because the game just isn't interesting. Or nobody wants to play it at all in the first place because the game just doesn't look interesting. And this is where the author makes a really great point. Let's read this little paragraph here. He says, none of this is to say that the core game mechanics don't matter. They matter a great deal. Games need depth to keep players around past the 100th hour. But that is worth nothing if nobody ever gets that 100th hour in the first place. If you can't even get people in the door, the quality of the food is irrelevant. Thank you. I think that's a great thing to say. The game actually has to be interesting. The gameplay has to be fun, deep, challenging, but the game itself has to be interesting. You have to want to make people play it because it's not just like a ranked experience only for advanced players. And he says the marketing pitch of every fighting game since the end of the arcade era has been, we've changed the game to appeal to you. Now please come play. And he says we need to get serious. Changing the core game mechanics won't save us. We have to do more than just make the game easier for people to play, to not only bring people in, but to keep them playing. So what is the answer to this? Well, the author says the game developers have to put the work into the much less glamorous goal of product design. And along with the author, I think that's where most fighting games fail. Now let's take a quick look at Street Fighter 6 because it is probably the best made fighting game out right now, possibly ever, in terms of a complete video game as a product. Okay, so once we actually boot up into Street Fighter 6, we've got a couple of options. Battle Hub over here where you can play kind of casual matches in an arcade environment, and then Fighting Ground on the right side where you can do training, challenges, missions, online, ranked, and casual. We have a bunch of different options here. And one of the greatest things that Street Fighter 6 did was actually giving everybody access to like a full, complete game. You want to grind? Fighting Ground. You want to play a little bit more casual but still fight against people, maybe do avatar battles, change your character, give them a different costume, do some funny dances, do all that kind of stuff? Battle Hub. You want to play single mode story where you can do a bunch of different things, interact with the characters, do missions? World Tour. So there's something for everybody in this game. And I think that's one big reason why this game is doing so well, not just the introduction of modern controls. Because if it was modern controls in a game like Street Fighter V, where basically it was just arcade versus a really crappy story that you could finish in under an hour and then ranked online, I don't think new players would have stuck with this game. And then don't forget, the online for this game is actually fantastic too. The rollback netcode works fantastically. It's got crossplay. It's just a decently made product. So let's contrast this to what the author thinks is important in a fighting game. Games need to have crossplay, very good single player content, functional anti-cheat, functional online netcode, matchmaking systems that quickly find evenly matched opponents with good connections, rank systems that are accurate to player skill, not easily gamed, and practice modes that make it easy to test and get comprehensive details about the core game mechanics. So I think a lot of fighting games out right now don't check all these boxes, and looking at this, I don't think there's any fighting game out right now that checks every single box. Yeah, Street Fighter, Tekken, they got crossplay, but none of the games have functional anti-cheat. Zero. And in games like Tekken, it's kind of famous for having lots of cheaters and like them never getting banned and things like that. A lot of fighting games still release without functional online netcode. If you guys remember like KOF 15 back in the day, that was broken for like a year and a half. It just seems like no fighting game right now is able to check each of these boxes, and that's what I think, along with this author, needs to be done to make a good product. Personally, I think it's ridiculous that we don't have anti-cheat in any fighting game other than what, 2xKO right now? Like, it's 2026. That's insane. I still think having good single player content is one of the most important things to get new people in. Also, practice mode. I think, in my opinion, we can add as many tutorials and like challenge modes as we want. But what I think fighting games need to do is they need to find a way to let people learn in a more fun way. I think it would be a great idea if any kind of fighting game like Grand Blue here or Street Fighter, imagine if you could save and upload your training mode settings for other people to download. This way they could practice against specific things. Or maybe for like challenges, people could do like a create a challenge mode in a fighting game that can teach people how to deal with certain things in kind of a fun way. I don't know, there's so many things that could be done. I just feel like a lot of fighting games developers are kind of just doing the bare minimum. Combo trial stuff, basic character explanations, like this really simple like take a throw 5 times. I mean, it's been done before and I don't think it's really getting people in. And I don't think most players want to sit through long, like multi-page tutorials either to get them to play more. That's not fun. It's not interesting. I think we need to do something that gets people learning the game organically as they play through different modes and user uploaded things to get more of like a social kind of like community aspect. So it doesn't just feel like you're sitting by yourself playing a fighting game online. And the author thinks this too. The author says current story modes don't challenge you to learn the game's mechanics or interact with it on any deliberate level. You can finish Tekken 8's story by just mashing the whole time and all those kind of things. However, I will say that Street Fighter 6's story mode, the World Tour, does actually teach you game mechanics like pairing and things like that. So I think he's kind of glossing over that a bit. So I disagree with that. Maybe he doesn't have too much experience with Street Fighter 6. They did a good job with that, but there could be so much more done, I feel. Then the author also says this is the major reason why free-to-play won't work for fighting games, at least for now, because you need to have a story mode that acts as the tutorial. If you guys have tried out 2xKO, 2xKO has no story mode. 2xKO doesn't even have arcade versus a CPU. You can only fight against people or do like training mode. So for very, very casual players who have no interest of fighting against people, there's nothing for them to do really. So it's such a missed opportunity there. And then one of the last points I want to touch here is when the author says grinding ranked over and over isn't that appealing as an end game. Even serious ranked grinders aren't playing more than a few hours a day and often need extended breaks. This isn't a good sales pitch, and single player content is obviously needed so people have something else to do when they're tired of ranked. And I mean, for those of you who watch like fighting game players and like streamers, think about your favorite streamer that you watch. How many times have you seen them play ranked for like a couple of hours and they say, okay, I'm tired of playing ranked, I'm switching to another game, and they load up like Balatro or like some kind of single player game because they're tired of doing ranked? Well, that's because there's nothing actually in the fighting game that they're playing for them to do other than just play ranked past like the first week of the game, right? So there's really nothing to do, even for people who enjoy the genre, even people who play a lot. So yeah, I agree with the author here. Developers need to give people more things to do within the game itself that are fun other than just ranked and then like the story mode that never changes after day one of release. But then one other thing that I think the author notes that I was really happy about was this, the second single player mode, dress up character customization. This is really, really popular. So lately, I've been really stressed out with work. I've been sick a lot this month, and I've been playing some other games other than fighting games just to kind of de-stress and take my mind off of, work kind of stuff, because content creation for me, as much as I love it, sometimes it is work. So what I've been doing to kind of de-stress and take my mind off things lately is playing this game right here, The Finals. And it's a game that I've been really enjoying lately. Now look how much there is to do even in a game like this. So this isn't the most popular first-person shooter out there right now, but even so, there's so much stuff to do when you go to like equipment or like customize, right? So if I go edit here, you have all these different things you can choose. And I'm not trying to glow up The Finals here. I'm just showing you there's so much stuff you can do to kind of customize your character and make it fun. And this is something I think fighting games need more of, stuff you can do in your matches. Like imagine if you could download different taunts to use in your matches or something. I don't know, it just gives you some personal flair. And I don't know what's stopping fighting game developers from like, I don't know, giving you downloadable taunts you can download for your character for a couple of dollars as DLC. I mean, I think people would buy that. Sounds, you can give them different sound effects. Obviously, you'd have to take this off from like ranked matches or something because it wouldn't work that way. It'd be a little bit broken. But just stuff to do, some fun things. Change your style, give your character a different look altogether. Look, I'm wearing this silly kind of Chinese dress now. Haha, isn't that funny? Like, there's just so many things you can do, but we can't do this in fighting games, and we definitely can't do it at this like a single click. You see how easy this was for me to do? I'm on the main menu, I hit edit, and I go here. And that's going to bring me to my next point, and this is something I don't think the author talks about, but I kind of feel like fighting game developers don't play games outside of fighting games. Because look how easy it is for me to get into a match, right? I'm here, here's the big yellow play rank button on the bottom right. I push the button, I'm in the match, okay? Now, I know this is a free-to-play game, and it's not really fair to kind of compare that way, but like it's easy. And I think that's something fighting games need to move towards, that kind of more modern feeling. Like when I play like The Finals or Counter-Strike 2 or like Valorant, it feels like a modern game, even the way the menus are, the way the game flows. But when I play something even like Street Fighter 6, which is a decently good video game, it still feels old. And then God forbid I play something else like, I don't know, like Fatal Fury, where the menus are just like a mess and it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So I don't know what these fighting game developers are doing on their free time. I don't know how they're researching other games, but I don't know. I just feel like they're too stuck in an old time that doesn't exist anymore. We need more stuff like this, fun stuff to do in the game, like, dressing up your character and things like that. But anyways, I'm getting a little bit long here, so let's wrap this up. And at the end, this author says, fighting games are bad products, not bad games. The genre's 25-year fixation on core game mechanics has been an endless distraction to avoid facing this reality. What I've suggested here are only starting points. Virtual spaces fit for the online era that recapture the arcade social environment, story modes that teach instead of pander, and single-player modes that amplify rather than distract. There are surely other angles I haven't considered. And his final paragraph here is the one that I like the most, I think, and he says, until fighting game developers start thinking about their games as products that are competing in a broader gaming market and understand that in this context they've fallen way behind, nothing is going to change. And I totally agree with that. I think fighting game developers are just competing amongst themselves, but they're not really looking at their games as competing against everything else that's out there right now. And you know what? Honestly, I don't see things changing too much. Maybe I'm too pessimistic. Maybe I've just get a little bit jaded, but I hope things move in the right direction. I want things to get better, but we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm not a game developer. It's completely out of my hands. Whatever happens, happens. But I mean, I don't think anything written in this article is like rocket science. I'm not trying to look down on the author. I'm just saying, I think if these fighting game developers just spent a little bit of time playing the more popular trending games right now, I think the answers are right in front of their faces, and all they have to do is just, copy the homework. But I don't know, what do you guys think? Do you agree with what was presented in this article? I skimmed through over a lot. I don't want to keep this video too long. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. And if you disagree, what do you think fighting game developers need to do to make fighting games more popular? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. It helps me out so very much. But anyways, that's the end of today's video. Thank you all so very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.